The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Ambassador Deho stood at the center of the massive chamber, his blue skin pale with fear. Around him, hundreds of alien representatives sat in their floating seats, all watching, him with worried eyes. The silence felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on everyone. Deho had been speaking for 20 minutes about the hive. His voice shook as he described what they had done to his home world. The hive came like a storm of hungry insects, but each one was the size of a building. They ate everything. Trees, rocks, metal, even the air itself. Nothing was left behind except empty space. 12 worlds are gone, Deho said, his voice barely above a whisper. 12 complete star systems, billions of lives consumed in days. Our weapons do nothing to them. They adapt faster than we can create new defenses. The council chamber buzzed with quiet conversations. The Altheans, tall and thin with golden skin, whispered among themselves. The Korthak, who looked like walking crystals, made musical sounds that meant they were scared. Even the proud Zalani with their 4 arms and silver eyes seemed worried. For 300 years, these same beings had treated humans like children. When Earth first made contact with the galaxy, the aliens had smiled and patted humans on the head like pets. They said humans were too violent, too primitive. They made rules about where humans could go and what they could do. Earth was allowed only a few colonies, and human ships had to follow strict paths through space. The humans had accepted this treatment. They seemed grateful just to be part of the galactic community. They traded their art and music for alien technology. They sent their best students to learn in alien schools. They followed every rule and law the council made. But now the rules meant nothing. The hive didn't care about galactic law or proper behavior. They just ate and grew bigger. We need help, Deho continued. The combined fleets of 17 species cannot stop them. Our best scientists cannot understand their biology. Our greatest generals cannot predict their movements. We are running out of options. High Counselor Vexitar floated down from his position at the top of the chamber. He was ancient even by alien standards and had lived through many galactic crises. His long, tentacled face showed deep worry lines. What exactly are you asking us to do? Vexitar asked. We have already sent our best ships and soldiers. If the combined might of the galaxy cannot stop these creatures, what more can be done? Deho took a deep breath. We need to ask the humans for help. The chamber exploded into noise. Aliens jumped from their seats, shouting in dozens of languages. The Korthak made sounds like breaking glass. The Altheans hissed. The Zalani waved all 4 arms in the air. The humans? Someone shouted. They've only been in space for a few centuries. They're barely past nuclear technology. What could they possibly do that we cannot? Vexitar raised a tentacled arm and slowly the noise died down. Ambassador Deho, please explain your reasoning. Deho's hands shook as he activated a holographic display. Images of destroyed worlds appeared in the air above him. Burned cities, empty oceans, dead planets. The humans come from a death world, he said. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues, predators. Everything on Earth evolved to survive by being stronger than the thing trying to kill it. The images changed to show Earth's history. Dinosaurs, ice ages, mass extinctions, wars. They are the only species in the galaxy that understands total war, Deho continued. We fight battles. We capture territory. We follow rules of engagement. But humans fight to win at any cost. They have a saying. If you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough. A Zalani counselor stood up. Are you suggesting we unleash these barbarians on the galaxy? Their methods are crude and violent. They solve every problem with explosions. Yes, Deho said simply, because the hive only understands violence. They cannot be reasoned with, they cannot be bargained with, they must be destroyed completely, and the humans are the only ones who know how to do that. Far away on Earth, Captain Boram sat in her office reading the Council's official request for aid. She was a small woman with short black hair and hard eyes. She had fought in 3 human wars and knew the cost of victory. The message from the Galactic Council was polite but desperate. Boram smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. She remembered the trade restrictions, the limits on human expansion, the condescending attitudes of alien diplomats who treated humans like dangerous children. Now those same aliens needed the dangerous children to save them. She opened a communication channel to Earth's High Command. "This is Captain Boram. I have the Council's request. They want our help with their bug problem. General." Jinwoo's face appeared on her screen. He was older than Boram, with gray hair and scars from the Mars Rebellion. He had been planning for this day since the first reports of the Hive reached Earth. "What are they offering?" Jinwoo asked. "Full membership in the Galactic Council, unlimited expansion rights, access to all their technology databases, and they're willing to remove all the restrictions they placed on us." Jinwoo laughed. It was a sound like grinding metal. "Funny how their principles change when they need something. What's your assessment of the situation?" Boram pulled up her analysis files. She had been studying the Hive for months, watching their attack patterns and behavior. They're like locusts, but smart. They adapt to every weapon used against them. The aliens keep trying to find a clean, efficient solution. They want to preserve their beautiful galaxy. And we don't care about beautiful, Jinwoo said. "No, sir, we don't. We care about winning." Jinwoo was quiet for a moment, thinking, "Send a message to the Council. Tell them we'll help, but we do it our way. No interference, no restrictions, no questions about our methods. If they want the Hive stopped, they need to let us off the leash. And if they refuse, then they can handle their own problems. We've survived without their help before." Back on the Council station, Daeho waited for Earth's response. The other aliens paced and argued around him. Some thought asking humans for help was a mistake. Others said they had no choice. When the message arrived, Vextar read it aloud to the assembled Council. Earth would help, but only on their own terms. No restrictions, no oversight, complete freedom to operate as they saw fit. "This is unacceptable," the Zalani counselor said. "We cannot give them unlimited power. Who knows what they might do?" "They might save us all," Daeho replied. "The Hive will be here in 3 months. Our fleets cannot hold them back. If the humans fail, we are all dead anyway. If they succeed using methods we don't approve of, at least we'll be alive to disapprove." The debate went on for hours. Some aliens walked out rather than vote. Others argued that death was better than letting humans loose in the galaxy. But in the end, fear won. The vote was close, but it passed. The Galactic Council formally requested aid from Earth and agreed to all human terms. When the message reached Earth, Jinwoo smiled for the first time in years. He opened a channel to military bases across human space. "All units, this is High Command. Operation Cleansing Fire is now active. The aliens have finally asked us to solve their problems the human way. Begin preparations immediately." Across human space, ships began to move. Not the clean, elegant vessels the aliens preferred, but ugly, practical machines built for war. Mining ships with military weapons bolted to their hulls. Cargo vessels filled with soldiers and supplies. Industrial platforms converted into mobile bases. The galaxy had asked humanity for help. Now they would learn what that really meant. General Jaemin stood in the command center of the massive battle station Earth had built in the Outer Rim. Around him, hundreds of screens showed the war across a dozen star systems. Red dots marked Hive positions. Blue dots showed human fleets. Gray zones marked areas too poisoned for anything to live. The gray zones were growing. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're getting emergency transmissions from the Galactic Council. They want to speak with you immediately." Jaemin had been expecting this call. 3 months of human warfare had changed the galaxy in ways the aliens never imagined. Ancient worlds that had existed for billions of years were now clouds of radioactive dust. Trading routes that had connected civilizations for millennia were blocked by zones of twisted spacetime. "Put them through," Jaemin ordered. High Counselor Vexitar's face appeared on the main screen, along with representatives from a dozen other species. They all looked tired and scared. Some of them were crying. "General Jaemin," Vexitar began, We need to discuss your methods. The reports we're receiving are troubling. The hive is retreating on all fronts, Jamin replied. Our methods are working. You're destroying the galaxy to save it, shouted the Althean representative. Her golden skin was pale with shock. The Kepler system had colonies that were 3 billion years old. Now there's nothing left but poisoned space. Those colonies were already dead, Jamin said calmly. The hive consumed them 2 weeks before we arrived. We just made sure the hive couldn't use what was left. A Zilani counselor leaned forward, all 4 of his arms shaking with anger. But what about the future? What about rebuilding? You've made entire regions of space permanently uninhabitable. Better permanently uninhabitable than permanently digested, Jamin replied. You asked us to stop the hive. This is how you stop something that eats everything. You make sure there's nothing left for it to eat. Earth's representative, Do Hyun, sat quietly in his chair at the council station. He was a diplomat, trained to negotiate and find peaceful solutions. But the war had changed him, just like it had changed everything else. There has to be another way, the Althean pleaded. Some method that doesn't require destroying everything we've built over millions of years. Do Hyun finally spoke. You had 300 years to find another way. You had the best minds of 17 species working on the problem. You had technology we can barely understand and resources we could never match. What did you accomplish? Aliens were silent. You lost 12 star systems, Do Hyun continued. Billions of lives consumed in days. The hive was growing stronger with every world they ate. In 6 months, they would have been unstoppable. So you came to us. You asked the primitive humans to solve your problem. But not like this, Vextar said quietly. Exactly like this, Do Hyun replied. This is how humans solve problems. We don't preserve the beautiful parts and hope the ugly parts go away. We burn everything down and build something new from the ashes. Meanwhile, in the war zones, human tactics continued to evolve. Seung-ho led the psychological warfare division from his base ship, a converted passenger liner filled with communication equipment and data analysis computers. The hive is trying to communicate, he reported to his team. They're sending signals we've never seen before, complex patterns that suggest they're trying to negotiate. Dr. Yoonji, who had been a university professor before becoming a weapons designer, looked up from her work. Negotiate? The hive doesn't negotiate, they just eat. That's what we thought, Seung-ho said. But they're learning faster than we expected. They've stopped attacking systems with heavy human presence. They're trying to find patterns in our behavior. Yoonji frowned. She had been working on humanity's most secret project, something so dangerous that even other humans weren't told about it. If they're learning to predict us, we need to give them something they can't predict. What do you mean? I mean it's time for the Prometheus Protocol. The Prometheus Protocol had been developed in the deepest bunkers on Earth by scientists who understood that sometimes you had to break the universe to save it. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a fundamental attack on reality itself. Are you sure? Seung-ho asked. Once we use that, there's no going back. The hive is adapting to our biological weapons, Yoonji said. They're building immunity to our poisons. They're learning to survive in our dead zones. If we don't escalate now, we'll lose our advantage. The first test of the Prometheus Protocol happened in the Vega system, where a small hive fleet had been trapped by human forces. Instead of using conventional weapons, the human ships deployed devices that looked like simple metal spheres. The spheres didn't explode. They didn't release energy or poison or biological agents. Instead, they changed the rules of physics in a small area around them. Gravity stopped working normally. Matter began to decay into energy at random intervals. The speed of light changed, making it impossible for the hive to coordinate their movements. Space itself became hostile to their existence. The hive fleet died, but not in any way that made sense. They simply stopped being able to exist in that region of space. Their matter scattered into elementary particles. Their energy dissipated into dimensions that shouldn't exist. What did we just do? Asked Captain Woo Seok, who had been watching from a safe distance. We broke the universe, Yoonji replied. Just a little bit and just in one place. But enough to show the hive that we're not playing by the same rules they are. News of the new human weapons spread quickly through both the Hive network and the galactic communication channels. The aliens were horrified. Several species recalled their fleets and refused to cooperate with human forces. "This is madness," Commander Velhan said during a meeting with Admiral Sunmi. "You're not just changing local physics. You're creating permanent anomalies that could spread across the galaxy." "Could," Sunmi agreed, "but probably won't. And definitely better than letting the Hive spread across the galaxy." "How can you be so calm about this?" Velhan asked. "You're playing with forces that could destroy everything." "Because that's what we do," Sunmi replied. "Humans have always lived on the edge of extinction. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and plagues that killed most of our species. We learned a long time ago that sometimes you have to risk everything to save anything." The Hive response was swift and terrifying. Instead of retreating further, they began to change their entire strategy. They stopped trying to consume and grow. Instead, they began building structures that seemed designed to contain or channel the human weapons. "They're not running anymore," Seung-ho reported. "They're preparing for something. Big structures near the galactic core, made from materials we've never seen before." General Jamin studied the reports with growing concern. "They're learning from us, just like we learned from them." "Sir?" his intelligence officer called out. "We're getting reports from the Outer Rim. Several alien species have formed a coalition. They're calling themselves the Preservation Alliance." "Let me guess," Jamin said. "They want to stop us." "Yes, sir. They say humanity has become a bigger threat than the Hive. They're mobilizing fleets to contain our operations." Jamin laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "They still don't get it. They think this is about choosing between preservation and destruction. They don't understand that sometimes there is no choice." Do-hyun received the formal declaration from the Preservation Alliance while he was eating breakfast. 23 alien species had signed a document declaring human methods too dangerous to continue. They demanded an immediate ceasefire and negotiations. "What should I tell them?" his aide asked. Do-hyun finished his coffee and stood up. "Tell them we appreciate their concern, tell them we understand their position, and tell them that if they interfere with our operations, we'll treat them the same way we treat the Hive." "Sir, that sounds like a threat." "It is a threat," Do-hyun replied. "The clearest threat I can make. We didn't start this war, but we're going to finish it. Anyone who gets in our way is part of the problem." The galaxy was dividing into 3 camps: those fighting the Hive, those fighting humanity, and those trying to run away from both. Ancient alliances crumbled as species chose sides based on fear rather than logic. But in the deep space laboratories, Dr. Yoon-ji continued her work. The Hive was adapting, learning, growing stronger. Soon, conventional human weapons wouldn't be enough. It was time to break more than just local physics. It was time to break the universe itself. "Are you ready for the next phase?" she asked her team. They were scientists, engineers, and researchers who had volunteered to do the impossible. They knew that their work might destroy everything they were trying to save, but they also knew that failure meant certain extinction. "Let's do it," they said. The war was about to become something entirely new. General Wu Jin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, humanity's newest and most terrifying weapon. The ship was massive, built from the combined resources of 3 star systems. It looked like a city that had been turned into a weapon, with gun batteries that could level planets and armor thick enough to survive black holes. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're getting emergency signals from across the galaxy. The Preservation Alliance fleet is moving toward our position." Wu Jin nodded calmly. He had been expecting this for weeks. The aliens had finally decided that humanity was more dangerous than the Hive. 23 species working together to stop Earth's war effort. "How many ships?" he asked. "Over 10,000, sir. The largest fleet in galactic history. They're coming from 6 different directions trying to surround us. And our forces? 800 ships, sir, but they're all equipped with the new weapons." Wu Jin smiled. The aliens still thought in terms of numbers and traditional tactics. They didn't understand that humanity had changed the rules of warfare itself. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what happens when you try to stop us." On the Galactic Council station, Young-Su sat across from representatives of the Preservation Alliance. As Earth's chief diplomat, he had tried to prevent this moment, but some things were inevitable. "This is your final chance," said Admiral Kethvar of the Zelani fleet. "Call back your ships. End your destructive campaign. Work with us to find a peaceful solution to the hive problem." Young-Su looked around the table at faces filled with fear and anger. These beings had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. They were ancient, wise, and powerful, but they didn't understand what they were dealing with. "Let me tell you a story," Young-Su said. "On Earth we have creatures called honey badgers. They're small animals, much smaller than the predators, that hunt them. But honey badgers have one special trait. They don't care about the size of their enemy. They will fight anything, no matter how big or dangerous." The aliens looked confused. You see, honey badgers understand something that most creatures don't. Sometimes, being reasonable gets you killed. Sometimes, the only way to survive is to be so unreasonable, so dangerously stubborn that your enemies decide you're not worth the trouble. "What does this have to do with your current actions?" asked the Althean representative. "Everything," Young-Su replied. "You created this situation. For 3 centuries, you treated us like children. You limited our expansion, restricted our technology, and told us we were too primitive for galactic society. But when the galaxy faced extinction, you came to the children for help." He stood up and walked to the viewing window, looking out at the stars. "Now you're surprised that we fight like the primitives you always said we were. You wanted us to solve your problems, but only in ways that made you comfortable. Your methods are destroying civilization itself," Admiral Kethvar protested. "No," Young-Su said firmly. "Our methods are saving what can be saved. Your civilization was already dying. The hive was eating it piece by piece. We just chose to cut off the infected parts before the disease could spread." Meanwhile, in the war zones, the battle between humanity and the Alliance had begun. But it wasn't like any battle the galaxy had ever seen. The Alliance fleets arrived, in perfect formation, their ships shining like jewels against the darkness of space. They moved with precision and grace, following battle plans developed over thousands of years of warfare. Kehoe commanded the human defense fleet. He was young, for a general, but he had grown up during the war and understood its brutal logic better than the older officers. "They're beautiful," he said, watching the alien ships approach. "Like a parade. Too bad we're not here to watch a parade." The human ships were scattered across the system, hidden behind asteroids and debris fields. They didn't form neat battle lines or follow traditional tactics. Instead, they waited like hunters in the darkness. "Remember," Kehoe told his captains, "we're not trying to beat them in a fair fight. We're trying to teach them that fair fights are for people who want to lose." The Alliance fleet entered the system expecting resistance. What they got was annihilation. The humans didn't attack the alien ships directly. Instead, they attacked the space around them. Reality bombs created zones where physics worked differently. Gravity weapons turned the Alliance's own momentum against them. Quantum disruptors made their energy shields useless. In 30 minutes, half the Alliance fleet was destroyed or disabled. The survivors tried to retreat, but they found that human ships had been waiting behind them, cutting off their escape routes. "Surrender now," Kehoe broadcasted to the remaining Alliance ships, "and we'll let you live. Keep fighting, and we'll show you what happened to the hive." Most of the alien ships surrendered immediately. A few tried to continue fighting, but they were destroyed so quickly that the others barely had time to watch them die. Back on the council station, reports of the battle's outcome arrived within hours. The Alliance had lost 70% of their fleet in less than an hour. The humans had lost 12 ships. "This is impossible," Admiral Kethvar said, staring at the reports. "Our ships are more advanced. Our weapons are more powerful. Our crews are more experienced. But your crews never fought anyone who wanted to kill them more than they wanted to live," Young-Su replied. "Human warriors don't fight to win battles. They fight to end wars. Ye Jin, monitoring galactic communications from her intelligence post, watched as panic spread across the galaxy. Entire civilizations were evacuating core systems. Trade routes that had existed for millions of years were abandoned. The galaxy's economy was collapsing as species fled from both the hive and humanity. "Sir," she reported to General Wu Jin, "we're detecting mass population movements. The Korthak are evacuating their home system. The Altheans are moving their government to the Outer Rim. Even some human colonies are requesting evacuation." "Let them run," Wu Jin replied. "This war was never about preserving their way of life. It was about preserving life itself." But in the Outer Rim, communications specialist Chan Wu had made a discovery that changed everything. He was analyzing deep space signals when he detected something that shouldn't exist. Structured transmissions coming from the galactic core. "General," he called to his superior, "you need to see this. The signals aren't from the hive." "What do you mean?" "I mean there's something else out there. Something the hive was running from." The data was terrifying. Deep in the galactic core, ancient structures were awakening. Things that had been sleeping in dark matter for billions of years were responding to the chaos of the war. The hive wasn't just randomly consuming worlds, Chan Wu explained. They were building barriers, trying to contain something. Contain what? I don't know. But whatever it is, our war with the hive has weakened those barriers, and now it's starting to wake up. The news reached Earth's high command within days. Emergency meetings were called. Scientists analyzed the data, while military leaders planned for a new kind of enemy. The hive was never the real threat, Dr. Yunji explained, to a room full of generals and admirals. They were the immune system, the galaxy's natural response to something much worse. "And we've been destroying that immune system," General Jamin said grimly. "Not destroying," Yunji corrected. "Replacing." The hive was trying to contain this threat by consuming everything around it. "We've been creating barriers a different way." She activated a holographic display showing the war zones. The areas humanity had sterilized formed a pattern around the galactic core, like a cage made of dead space. "Every system we've poisoned, every region we've made uninhabitable, is a wall that this thing can't cross. We haven't been fighting a war of conquest. We've been building a prison." The room was silent as the implications sank in. "Did we know?" asked Admiral Sunmi. "When we started this, did we know what we were really doing?" "No," Yunji admitted. "But our instincts were right. Sometimes, to save something, you have to kill everything around it." Young-Su stood before the Galactic Council one final time. The Great Chamber was nearly empty now. Most species had evacuated to the Outer Rim or beyond. Only a few representatives remained. "You asked Earth for aid," he said to the nearly empty room. "You wanted us to save your galaxy. We did exactly that. The price was everything you thought your galaxy should be. But the alternative was everything you were. Period." High Counselor Vextar, one of the few aliens still present, asked quietly, "Was there really no other way?" Young-Su considered the question seriously. "Maybe. If you had asked us 300 years ago, when we first made contact, if you had treated us as equals instead of primitives, if you had shared your knowledge instead of restricting it, if you had let us help build your civilization instead of forcing us to destroy it. But that's not what happened," Vextar said. "No," Young-Su agreed. "That's not what happened. So instead of building a better galaxy together, we had to save what was left of the old one. The war was almost over. The hive had been contained, or destroyed. The Alliance had been defeated. And in the galactic core, something ancient and terrible remained, trapped behind barriers of poisoned space and broken physics. Humanity had saved the galaxy by nearly destroying it. Now they would discover if the universe would thank them for it. Admiral Sunmi stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the alien fleet through the viewing screen. The Velrani ships were beautiful, like flowing sculptures made of silver and light. They moved through space like dancers, graceful and elegant. Next to them, the human fleet looked like a junkyard. Sunmi's ship had been a cargo hauler before the war. Thick armor plates were welded over the original hull, and weapon pods stuck out at odd angles. The other human ships were even worse. Old mining vessels with drill bits turned into weapons. Factory ships that could build bombs while flying through space. Nothing matched, nothing looked pretty, but everything worked. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "the Velrani fleet commander wants to talk to you." Commander Velhan's face appeared on the screen. He was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large black eyes. Like all Velrani, he moved slowly and spoke carefully, as if every word was important. "Admiral Sunmi," Velhan said, "we welcome you to the front lines. We have prepared detailed battle plans based on our analysis of hive movements. If you could position your ships according to our formations—" "No," Sunmi said simply. Velhan blinked his large eyes. "I'm sorry, Admiral, did you say no?" "That's right. We're not here to follow your battle plans. We're here to end this war." Sunmi turned to her tactical officer. "Hyunsik, show our alien friends what we brought." Engineer Hyunsik had spent his whole life working in asteroid mines. He was short and stocky with powerful hands and a face that never smiled. He had volunteered for the war because someone needed to blow things up, and he was very good at that. "Brought everything," Hyunsik said, bringing up a display of the human fleet's cargo. "Nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, quantum disruptors, biological weapons, chemical weapons, nanite swarms, gravity bombs, and some stuff we invented just for this war." The alien observers looked horrified. A Zelani officer actually stepped backward from the screen. "You cannot use such weapons," Commander Velhan said. "The Galactic Warfare Convention specifically prohibits—" "We never signed your convention," Sunmi interrupted. "You told us we were too primitive to understand proper warfare, remember?" Over the next few days, the aliens watched in growing alarm as the humans prepared for battle. Instead of forming neat battle lines or establishing defensive positions, the humans spread out through the system like they were planning to strip mine it. Tae Young led the demolition teams. He had been a construction worker on Mars before the HFY War, building cities in the Red Desert. Now he built destruction instead of buildings, and he was just as good at it. "The aliens keep asking what we're doing," Tae Young told his crew as they placed charges on an asteroid. "They don't understand. You can't fight the hive like it's an army. It's not an army, it's a disease." His crew nodded as they worked. They were all civilians turned soldiers, people who knew how to build and destroy on a massive scale. They planted bombs in asteroids, poisoned gas clouds, and set traps throughout the system. "When you have a disease," Tae Young continued, "you don't negotiate with it. You don't capture it, you kill it completely, and you make sure it never comes back." Miran worked in her laboratory aboard the converted factory ship. She had been a scientist before the war, studying alien biology. Now she used that knowledge to create horrors that made even her human assistants uncomfortable. "The hive adapts to everything," she explained to a group of young soldiers who were delivering her latest creation. "Every weapon we use, they learn to defend against, so we don't give them time to adapt." She held up a small container filled with gray liquid. "This is a biological weapon that attacks their genetic structure. It doesn't just kill them. It makes it impossible for them to reproduce or evolve. Once they're infected, their own biology turns against them." One of the soldiers looked sick. "Is that legal?" Miran stared at him with cold eyes. "Legal? Son, we're fighting for the survival of every living thing in the galaxy. There is no legal or illegal. There's only alive and dead. Which would you rather be?" When the hive finally arrived, they came like a black wave across space. Millions of creatures, the size of buildings, moving together like a single mind. They had eaten their way through 3 star systems to get here, growing stronger with every world they consumed. The alien fleets met them first, firing their elegant energy weapons and launching their sophisticated missiles. The hive absorbed. Some ships adapted to the weapons and kept coming. Within hours, half the alien fleet was gone. "Now we go," Sunmi ordered. The human fleet didn't attack the hive directly. Instead, they attacked everything else. Tae Young's demolition charges turned asteroids into clouds of radioactive dust. Miran's biological weapons poisoned the space around planets. Other ships released nanite swarms that ate metal and converted it into more weapons. The aliens watched, in horror as the humans systematically destroyed everything in the system. When the hive moved toward a planet, the humans cracked its crust and filled the atmosphere with poison. When the hive tried to consume an asteroid belt, the humans collapsed it into a black hole. "What are you doing?" Commander Velhan screamed over the communication channel. "You're destroying everything." "That's the point," Sunmi replied calmly. "The hive needs matter to consume and energy to convert. We're not giving them either. We're turning this system into a graveyard where nothing can live." Hyunsik's weapons teams worked around the clock, building new horrors and deploying them as fast as they could manufacture them. Bombs that created permanent radiation fields. Weapons that turned matter into antimatter. Devices that broke the laws of physics in small areas, making space itself hostile to life. The hive tried to adapt, but there was nothing to adapt to. The humans weren't fighting them with energy or matter. They were fighting them with entropy itself, turning order into chaos faster than the hive could process it. "They're retreating," Velhan said in amazement. He watched his sensors as the hive swarm turned away from the system and began moving back the way they had come. "Good," Sunmi said. "Tae-young, start Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? A Zilani observer asked. "We follow them home," Hyunsik answered. "And we kill everything they've ever touched." The human fleet began moving, but not in formation like a normal military force. They spread out like a disease of their own, following the hive's trail, backward through space. Everywhere the hive had been, the humans left poison and traps and weapons that would kill anything that tried to live there. Myran developed new biological weapons every day. Viruses that attacked the hive's ability to communicate. Bacteria that made their matter consumption toxic to them. Genetic bombs that turned their own evolutionary advantages against them. "You're not just killing the hive," Commander Velhan protested. "You're sterilizing entire regions of space. Nothing will ever be able to live in those systems again." "Better empty than eaten," Sunmi replied. "Your people wanted the hive stopped. This is what stopping them looks like." The war turned into something the galaxy had never seen before. Not a battle between armies, but an extermination campaign that left empty space behind. The humans moved through hive territory like antibodies through an infected body, killing everything they touched and making sure nothing could ever grow there again. Other species began calling them the Death Fleet, or the Sterilizers. Anyway, humans didn't care what they were called. They had a job to do and they were very good at their job. "The hive is no longer advancing," Daeho reported to the Galactic Council. "For the first time since the war began, they are retreating from multiple fronts." "But at what cost?" Vextar asked. "The humans have made dozens of star systems completely uninhabitable. They've poisoned space itself in some regions." "They're saving the galaxy," Daeho replied. "Maybe not the galaxy we want, but the galaxy we can actually have." The hive continued to retreat, but they were learning too. They began to evolve specifically to counter human weapons. They developed immunity to radiation, resistance to biological weapons, and new forms that could survive in the dead spaces the humans left behind. "They're getting smarter," Miran reported to Sunmi. "They're not just adapting to our individual weapons anymore. They're adapting to our entire strategy." Sunmi nodded. "Expected that." "Hyunsik, how long until the new weapons are ready?" 2 weeks, Admiral." "Good. The hive thinks they understand us now. Time to show them they're wrong." The war was changing, becoming something darker and more terrible with each passing day. But the humans weren't worried. They had been preparing for this their whole lives, even if they didn't know it. Evolution was a two-way process, and humanity had always been very good at evolving. Supreme Commander Minho stood in the observation deck of Earth's new orbital fortress, watching the data streams from across the galaxy. 3 years had passed since the end of the active war, but the real battle was just beginning. "Sir," his chief analyst reported, "the containment barriers are holding. No breaches detected in the core regions." Minho nodded, but he didn't feel relieved. They had learned too much about what lay sleeping in the galactic center to ever feel truly safe again. The ancient things that the hive had been trying to contain were still there, still waiting. What about the outer colonies? He asked. Stable, sir. The surviving populations are beginning to rebuild. Trade routes are being re-established around the dead zones. The dead zones. That's what they called the regions of space that humanity had sterilized during the war. Vast areas where nothing could live, nothing could grow, and nothing could travel safely. They formed a complex maze around the galactic core, keeping the ancient threat trapped inside. Dr. So Young, the architect of humanity's final strategy, approached with her latest report. She looked older than her years, worn down by the weight of what she had helped create. The barriers are more than just dead space, she explained to Minho. We've created a three-dimensional maze of twisted physics and hostile reality. Even if something could survive the radiation and the biological weapons, it couldn't navigate through the distorted spacetime. And if the barriers fail, then everything dies, So Young said simply. Not just the galaxy, everything. The things sleeping in the core aren't like the hive. They don't consume matter or energy. They consume existence itself. Minho had read the reports from the deep space probes that had managed to get close to the galactic center before being destroyed. The ancient entities weren't alive in any sense that humans could understand. They were more like forces of nature, designed to unmake reality and return it to the void from which it came. How long do we have? He asked. As long as the barriers hold, So Young replied. Could be 1,000 years, could be 1,000,000, or could be tomorrow if something goes wrong. On the reformed Galactic Council station, now located in the outer rim, Ambassador Junho met with the representatives of the surviving civilizations. The grand chamber that had once held hundreds of species now held fewer than 50. The reconstruction is proceeding slowly, reported Deho, who had been elected as the new council president. Most species are reluctant to establish colonies near the dead zones. Can you blame them? Asked Admiral Velhan, who now commanded the combined fleets of 3 different species. Half the galaxy is uninhabitable. Travel between remaining systems requires navigating through regions where physics doesn't work properly. Junho looked around the smaller chamber. The surviving species were different now. The war had changed them, just as it had changed humanity. They were harder, more practical, less concerned with beauty and more focused on survival. The galaxy we saved isn't the galaxy you wanted, Junho said, but it's the galaxy you can have. The alternative was no galaxy at all. Do you ever regret it? Asked the Althean representative, her golden skin now marked with scars from radiation exposure. All the worlds lost, all the civilizations destroyed? Junho considered the question carefully. Regret implies we had a choice. We didn't. The hive was going to consume everything anyway. At least this way, something survived. And what about the future? Deho asked. What happens when the barriers start to weaken? What happens when those things in the core begin to stir again? Then we do what humans have always done, Junho replied. We adapt, we evolve, we find a way to survive. Meanwhile, in the deep space research stations scattered throughout human territory, scientists continued to study the ancient threat. Dr. Yunji, now head of Earth's Advanced Research Division, had spent years analyzing the data from the galactic core. They're not random destroyers, she explained to her research team. They're more like cleaners. They appear when a galaxy becomes too complex, too chaotic. Their purpose is to reset everything back to a simpler state. You mean they're a natural part of galactic evolution? Asked one of her assistants. Natural might not be the right word, Yunji replied. But they're part of some kind of cosmic cycle. Birth, growth, complexity, chaos, then reset. They've probably done this to thousands of galaxies over billions of years. And the hive knew this? The hive was part of the cycle too. They were supposed to prepare the galaxy for reset by consuming all the complex matter and energy. When they finished, the reset entities would wake up and finish the job. The implications were staggering. The war hadn't been about invasion or conquest. It had been about preventing the end of everything. So what we did, the assistant said slowly, was interrupt a process that's been going on since the universe began. Exactly. We broke the cycle. Instead of letting the galaxy be consumed and reset, we trapped both parts of the process. The hive is contained or destroyed, and the reset entities are trapped behind barriers they can't cross. For how long? As long as we can maintain the barriers, which means forever if we want civilization to continue existing. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Shin I prepared for humanity's next great journey. The home system was being converted into a massive shipyard, building vessels designed for travel between galaxies. The Milky Way was saved, but it was scarred and dangerous. Maybe it was time to find a new home. The long-range surveys are complete, she reported to Earth's government. We've identified 17 galaxies within feasible travel distance. 3 of them show signs of technological civilizations. And the others? Asked the president. Uninhabited, clean, no signs of hive infestation or reset entities. We could start fresh. The debate that followed would shape humanity's future for millennia. Some argued for staying in the Milky Way, maintaining the barriers and rebuilding civilization in the spaces between the dead zones. Others wanted to leave, to find a galaxy where they could grow without the constant threat of ancient destroyers awakening. We could split up, suggested General Wu Jin. Send colony fleets to other galaxies while maintaining forces here to watch the barriers. And if the barriers fail while we're gone? Asked Admiral Sunmi. Then the reset entities wake up in an empty galaxy, Wu Jin replied. Nothing left for them to destroy except each other. In the end, they chose both options. Colony fleets were prepared for the long journey to distant galaxies, while defensive fleets remained to guard the barriers and monitor the sleeping threats. The first colony ships launched 50 years after the end of the war. Massive vessels, carrying millions of humans and representatives from the surviving alien species. They were accompanied by human warships, just in case they found trouble in their new homes. Admiral Shin-A commanded the lead ship, watching the Milky Way shrink. Behind them as they accelerated toward intergalactic space, the galaxy they were leaving was scarred and broken, but it was alive. They had saved it by nearly destroying it, and now they were leaving it to heal. Any regrets? Asked her second-in-command. Shin-A thought about the question. Behind them lay a galaxy of dead zones and surviving pockets of civilization. Ahead lay unknown worlds and uncertain futures. Around them traveled the descendants of species that had once ruled the stars, now refugees seeking new homes. No regrets, she said finally. We did what we had to do. We saved what could be saved. And if we find more threats in the new galaxy, then we'll do what humans do, Shin-A replied. We'll adapt, we'll evolve, we'll find a way to win. In the depths of intergalactic space, other entities stirred, ancient things that fed on the energy released when galaxies died. They had been drawn by the signals of destruction from the Milky Way, expecting to find a galaxy in its death throes. Instead, they found something unprecedented. A galaxy that had been wounded but not killed, surrounded by barriers that made it impossible to approach. And moving away from that wounded galaxy, they detected ships carrying the signature of the beings responsible. The entities began to follow, curious about creatures that could break cosmic cycles and trap reset mechanisms. Humanity had saved their galaxy by turning it into a fortress. Now they would discover if the universe contained other threats that required the same harsh medicine. But as Admiral Shin-A watched the stars of their destination galaxy grow brighter, she felt confident in one thing. Whatever they found waiting for them, humanity would face it the same way they always had. With overwhelming violence, complete commitment, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat, the galaxy behind them bore the scars of their salvation. The galaxies ahead would learn what it meant to face a species that had proven they would burn the universe itself rather than surrender. Humanity had become the monsters that saved the galaxy. Now they were bringing that gift to the rest of the universe, whether it wanted salvation or not.